Welcome class to Recipe Reviews 101, where we teach you how to look at a recipe and understand what's going on with it. Today we're going to be looking at pan-fried chicken breast from the Twitter user RK Adventures. And of course, as always, I'll put a link to the recipe down in the comments, or I'll put a link to the recipe down in the... And as always, I'll put a link to the recipe down in the description section below. So grab yourself a pen, paper, and a thirst of knowledge, because I'm Professor Kitchen, and class is in session. When I saw this recipe for pan-fried chicken breast on Twitter, the person who posted it, was claiming that it is the best fried chicken recipe they've ever had. They love it, blah, 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 this, that, and the other, kind of standard stuff you see. But I went out and I looked at it anyway. And to be honest, it's very basic, but truthfully, my wife cooks chicken breast this way a lot. Just very basic seasoning, and it is very good. The thing about chicken is that it is such a mild flavor that it becomes a canvas for whatever you put on it. So in this case, we're going to be using garlic powder as our main seasoning. And if you like garlic, this is really going to come out as a lot of garlic because the chicken is not going to overwhelm it. You're actually using the chicken to accent the garlic flavor. And that's what's great about chicken, in my opinion. So let's get to it and see what this recipe has to offer. The ingredients: 1 to 1.5 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken breast, kosher salt, fresh ground black pepper, garlic powder, 1 tablespoon of olive oil, 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter. Pretty straightforward. Let's get to the directions. First step, pat chicken breast dry with a paper towel. The reason you're doing this is that chicken breasts are normally very wet coming out of the package. And what will happen is if you put that wet chicken breast on a pan, it's going to create a lot of steam and you're going to end up steaming your chicken. You won't get that crispness that you're looking for when you're pan searing chicken. It's an important tip always when you're doing chicken breast to make sure you got the outside dry before you try to put a crust on it, or else it won't work. Step 2. Season both sides of chicken breasts with kosher salt, black pepper, and garlic powder. And then she adds, or he, I'm not sure which, adds a note, says, I'm not giving amounts because I don't measure, but if I had to guess, I would say a half teaspoon of salt, a quarter teaspoon of black pepper, and a half teaspoon of garlic powder. Then it says to allow it to set for 30 minutes. This is what's great about when you really start to understand recipes. The author of this recipe took it for granted that you're going to know what you like, and they're not going to try to force their favorite flavor combinations on you. They're telling you what they do, but maybe you're like my family and you like some pretty strong flavors, and so you're going to put more garlic salt than most people might. However, maybe you're on the opposite side of it and you're like, man, I don't really care for, I want to taste more chicken than I do garlic or salt or pepper, so you're just going to put a little bit. What's great about recipes like this is the author understands that everybody's flavor desires in their mouth are different. And I applaud the author for the way they wrote this. All right, step 3. Heat large skillet with 1 tablespoon of olive oil. When the oil begins to shimmer, swirl in butter until melted and bubbly. Don't wait too long before you put the butter into the olive oil. Don't let the olive oil get too hot, because that butter has actually quite a lot of water in it. And if you've ever had cold water hit hot grease, you know what happens. You're going to have a Mount Vesuvius on your stove. So don't let that hot oil or that oil get too hot. Step 4. Add in chicken breasts one at a time, taking care not to crowd the pan. One of the best ways of doing this, a great technique, is always start when you're standing looking at your pan, always start at the 12 o'clock position, the very top in front of you.
11 o'clock! Dad, 11 o'clock! What happens at 11 o'clock? 12, 11, 10, 11 o'clock, fire!
And lay it going around the outside. And then if you need the space on the inside, you can lay some in there. Usually you can only fit 1 piece. But that way you know which ones you put in first and which ones you put in last. So when you go to flip them, you always flip from the ones you put in first. That way everything's getting about the same amount of time in the pan. Number 5, allow chicken breast to cook on the first side until golden brown. Do not move them while they are browning. This can take about 5 to 6 minutes or so. Make sure you don't have your heat up too high or else what you're going to do is you're going to end up burning the bottom of them. Use kind of a, what, it doesn't even say what, no, it doesn't say how high to set your stove. I'm going to recommend on this that you don't go anything above a medium high, and unless your stove is just very weak and doesn't get a lot of heat going on. I wouldn't recommend anything above a medium high. My stove, I probably wouldn't use anything above a medium, because it's going to get hot enough to where it could burn the outside of the chicken breast, especially with that garlic powder on there. You're going to get burned garlic flavor instead of garlic flavor. That's not good eats at all. Good quote, Alton Brown. All right, so your 5 or 6 minutes are up. You got a brown crust on it. It says, number 6, turn the breast over and brown the other side. This can take another 5 to 6 minutes. Step 7, cover the pan, turn heat down to medium, and continue cooking until internal temperature is just under 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Time will depend on size of the chicken breast. I never recommend getting too thick of a chicken breast, because the danger is that you're going to get on the end where it tapers down to a point, you're going to have that be just chewy and rock hard, while at the other end where it's nice and fat, it's going to be underdone in the middle. And that's just really not good food there. So try and make your chicken breast not super thin, but don't let them get too thick. If you have to cut it in half, cut that thing in half. All right, step 8. Remove chicken breast to a platter and let rest for 2 to 3 minutes before serving or cutting into chunks for recipes. The reason you want to let it rest is because you want it to cool down a little bit, so that the juice, when you cut into it, the juices just don't go everywhere. Give it some time. Let it sit there, let it cool down, let the juices reabsorb back into the meat, and your chicken will be less chewy and more juicy. It's a great tip from them. All right, let me know. Have you tried a recipe like this or a similar recipe? Do you have recipes that you would like me to go over in recipe reviews? Let me know down in the comment section below, or hit me up on Twitter. I will put my Twitter handle floating around here somewhere. Hope you all have a great week. God bless. Class dismissed.